What's up, guys? Jason McMurray here. I'm just on my way right now out to BC for my big month-long riding trip. I get a lot of questions about my two choices of sleds. I have a 2020 Polaris Khaos 850 155, and I also have a 2019 Arctic Cat Alpha 1 154. The Khaos is a 2.6. My Arctic Cat is a 3-inch. And I get a ton of questions all the time about which sled I like better. If I had to choose one, which one would it be? And the answer is, I don't know. I can't honestly decide which sled is overall a better machine. So I wanted to make this video and address the pros and cons of each, and kind of just run through why I still have both sleds. So we'll start off with kind of the beginning. So 2018, I was still on a 2016 Arctic Cat 153, the limited with the 3-inch. It was a great sled. It was my first brand new to me, well, it was brand new mountain sled, and I really started to learn how to mountain ride on that sled. It was great. It was the narrow 36-inch front end with the old 800 Suzuki motor. Worked great. So that thing never gave me one issue. Ran flawless all the time, and I never broke anything. It was a super tough machine. So end of 2018, Arctic Cat announced the release of the Alpha 1, the monorail, and of course 2018 they had the C-Tech 2 800, which turns out it's a very good motor. Maybe not as reliable as the old Suzuki, we can argue that, but makes better power. It's got better clutches. But they came out with the Alpha 1. That was the big thing. And I jumped on it. I took it, hook, line, and sinker, the whole bit. And I spring ordered one. So I was a little bit late getting my spring order. And that was actually my first year going out to BC. So I got the sled a week before I was heading out west. Did some minor things to it, set it up for myself, and then took it out west. Now it was really cool because I was able to compare that, my 2019 Alpha 1, to my buddy had a 2016 M800 limited, same as my old one, and I was springing it out for him, and we were riding together out there. So I had both those machines, and I could go back to back riding them. And man, there was a big difference in handling, just ease of riding. The Alpha 1 is hands down way easier to get on edge, way easier to keep on edge, we'll say, and it really outperformed the 2016 Arctic Cat Limited in the super deep snow. I'm talking over the hood. It climbed well. It got out of a hole really good, which I already thought the 2016 did a good job of all those things. But the Alpha 1 did it even better. So my biggest issue that I had was right away, I think I had 600 kilometers on it of all BC riding, and two issues. My track was starting to come apart. Where the track was flexing across the lug, it was splitting the lug, and eventually it would chuck a piece of that off, and it got bad. I made it through that season okay, but I didn't get through the next season. In 2020, I was back out west with my semi tore up track. I debated replacing it. Arctic Cat wouldn't do anything for me warranty wise. They told me I was driving it on hard pack and whatever. So kind of had put a bad taste in my mouth. Their customer service was not very great, and I'm not talking dealership. Like the dealership tried to warranty it, but they got denied multiple times. So I dealt directly with customer service, and they had no interest in fixing that for me. So 2020 was back out west, winter of 2020, 2021, I guess. And sorry, winter of 19 and winter 1920. Back out west with my semi tore up track. Only made it a few days when I had a pretty substantial chunk of track delaminate. The fiberglass rods were broken. It was bad. So I called the local dealer there, and they're awesome. But of course, they just sold their track that they had in stock, so I was going to be waiting 9 or 11 days to get a track, and mine was unrideable. So there I was with a 2019 sled, no track, nobody around BC, like within 10-hour drive, had a track for me. So I was kind of screwed. So I didn't want to rent a sled. I was already fed up with Arctic Cat. I mean, you know, the machine worked well and whatever. It gave me a few little issues. Just small things like exhaust servo motor quit working. The handlebar controller, where all your hand warmers and your gauge control, that big unit, calved on me. The track issue, I found it was tearing up my sliders. If I ran the track too loose, it would tear up the sliders, but Arctic Cat told me if I ran it too tight, then that's what was wrecking the track. So I was just having a hard time with Arctic Cat at the time, and I said, you know what, I'm going to look around for another sled to buy. So awesome, I got a hold of Bacchus Racing in Sycamoose. They had this 2020 Khaos 155 in stock, ready to go, and at that point it actually had some discounts because it was a 2020 like previous year model. So got some discounts, still got a wicked warranty with it, and I pulled the trigger on that, and I was back on the snow like next day kind of thing. So I don't regret it. The Khaos was awesome. Initial impressions of how it was set up out of the box, it was a wheelie machine. Like going from my Cat to that, it was just almost unrideable for me. In the steep and deep, like be great flatland sled for sure, but when I wanted to go up, I wanted to go up. I didn't want to flip over backwards and wheelie all the time. So I ended up shortening the limiter straps while I was out there, and that got it way more under control. I got some lower bars on it, and that was big difference right there. And yeah, ripped that sled, jumped it stock. The stock shocks were pretty decent, and yeah, it worked well. So fast forward to the following season, now I have both sleds, and they both work really well. Now, a couple issues with the Polaris that I noticed. when I was in BC on those super deep days, I had some issues with like snow bog. So my vents would get covered with, there'd be a foot of snow on my dash when you're trying to ride. It would just choke it out eventually. So, and it was a pain trying to keep those vents cleared. So little things like just, I threw an Extreme Air Vents intake kit on it, and that pretty much got rid of my powder bog issues. And then what else did I do? I braced the rails, threw a GGB can on it, and actually I also geared it down to the Pro gearing. So the Pro gearing is actually the same gearing as the Kurtz Polaris gear down kit. It's just way cheaper, and there's lots of the used Pro gears around, and you can use your stock Axis belt. So that's what I did for last season, and that made a big difference for that sled to get out of the hole. It performed way better. Now I still found the 2.6 struggled on those deep days. Now I know it's only 155 and it's a Khaos, but the 2.6 just didn't have the traction on those super deep fluffy days, where compared to the Alpha, it was just, the Alpha was hands down better in that super deep stuff. But on the flip side, later on, like getting into the spring of the year, or even just crappy conditions throughout the season, I would prefer to ride the Polaris, because the Alpha does tend to wash out on crappy snow. So that becomes an issue when you're in really steep technical terrain, crappy snow. You start washing out, it becomes unpredictable, and you just don't trust it as much. It's not unrideable unless it's icy, which is just not fun riding in those conditions anyway. But yeah, big difference with that Polaris 2.6 in crappier conditions snow. It worked really good. It hooked up super good, very predictable. It was like a surgical knife compared to the Alpha. It was like safety scissors. But again, deep snow, Alpha was way better in traction, getting up on top of the snow and moving quickly, and no powder bog issues really. So that's the big differences there. I really liked the QS3 air shocks that come stock on the Alpha. So for this year, I picked up a used set of Fox QS3 coils for my Khaos. I threw those on there. I think I really like that QS3 with the 3 position. I like my setup pretty stiff already. And then when I'm doing big jumps, big drops, I actually flip into the 3rd setting, the stiffest setting, and it just, when you can't bottom it out, then it's very stiff, and I just like the way it feels when I jump and do drops in that 3rd setting. That being said, I can tone it back to number 2 or number 1, and it just makes it way more fun, super playful, very rowdy, and just a plush ride. Like even on the trail, I'll dial it back to number 1 setting and just roll through those whoops, nice and plush, nice and cushy. So I like the QS3s. That's one big change I made for the Khaos this year. I'm sorry this is kind of all over the place, but I'm just talking about things as it pops into my head. So some other upgrades I did to the Khaos to make it a little better in the deep powder. I upgraded to the composite 3-inch track. I believe it's an M770 composite 3-inch, and it's a 3-inch pitch. So when I was upgrading to the track, I wanted to upgrade my drivers anyway, because any of you Polaris guys know that center drive, single center drive extrovert is not very good. You have to run your track super, super tight to keep it from ratcheting. And I could keep it from ratcheting if I ran it very, very tight, but honestly, I could barely roll the track by hand when the track was up in the air. That's how stiff it made it when you run your track that tight. So I upgraded to a set of Powder Freaks extrovert drivers. That got me my 3-inch pitch, got me the extrovert drivers, and that gives me my 3-inch paddle that I wanted. So I was considering the new 2.75 Polaris track, but they're expensive as hell, and it was a little tricky for availability early season this year, so had a chance to pick up a very lightly used 3-inch composite, so I jumped on it, and I'm not looking back. I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to work. That should get me way more comparable to the Alpha in the Super Deep. Another big upgrade I did this year was I dropped the Pro gearing that I had and went even lower to the QD2. So that's right, the QD2 is even lower than the Kurtz Polaris gear down or the Pro gearing. So I think that's going to be even better. I really think that it'll benefit from getting out of the snow. Obviously Polaris thought that too, because they went to the QD2 for all the new stuff, and I really think it's going to help. I don't care about top speed. I care about track speed, and the stuff I ride is usually tighter trees, more technical, lower speeds, lower ground speeds, but you want that track speed, so I'm pretty sure that gearing is going to do it. So that was another big upgrade I did this year. So along with all that stuff, I upgraded my wheels, my rear wheels, and my skid to the iTech big wheel kit. And once I did that, with running my track a little looser, I can spin that track with one hand, with it up in the air. So the resistance there is almost gone. It's going to be a big difference. Now keep in mind, composite track was quite a bit heavier. I didn't weigh them, but it was quite a bit heavier than the 2.6, the stock 2.6. Like I noticeably could feel the weight difference when I was lifting the track up off the ground when it was off the sled. So hopefully the rolling resistance will kind of make up for that. I know it's rotating mass, but you got to give a little to get a little, so I'm willing to try that. As for the Alpha upgrades for this year to keep it going, because it seems like every year I break something, break down, and that's my main beef with Arctic Cat is parts availability is pretty bad. A lot of stuff is back ordered, and I don't just mean since COVID. I mean it before COVID. Back order parts was always a thing with Arctic Cat, has been for years, and it's still happening. And the season's too short, and for me, I can't afford to miss, more than a couple days because of I can't get a part. So last year for me was the rail. I bent the rail, so that would be my second rail that I destroyed. The first rail, Arctic Cat actually warranted, so that was good. That was the rear blocks for the rear suspension, rear scissor, where they mounted. They were riveted and glued. Those came loose and to the point of almost falling off. Arctic Cat came good, gave me a new rail under warranty. Since then, they've actually updated the rail to a through bolt, so I think that's going to probably alleviate most of those issues. But last year, on the rail that Arctic Cat did give me under warranty, I bent it. I bent the rear section. You could noticeably see it. I didn't hit anything, it was just I hit a jump. I landed in my own bomb hole. Not a big jump, very small. Didn't pull out the phones or anything to video it. It was just a small jump. landed in my own bomb hole, and immediately I knew as soon as I got back in the gas, my track ratcheted. I knew I'd bent the rail. So sure enough, bent the rail. Had to crank up the track tension to get out. I made it out, but the rail was noticeably bent. So of course Arctic Cat would not warranty that. So this year I searched out all the rail braces for the Alphas. There's only a few out there, but most of them are all the same. I found one company called Pinned Performance, P-I-N-D, Pinned, and they make a wicked rail brace. It's all CNC machined, one piece aluminum. It eliminates those riveted on, glued on bolts. Use the through bolt system, and it's beefy, it's long, it's got good coverage, and I know for sure I will not be bending that rail this year, so that's a good peace of mind. Along with the pinned rail brace, they also have really awesome running board inserts for the Arctic Cats. As we all know, Arctic Cats had the same running board design since 2012, whenever the Procline chassis came out. They were terrible then. They're still terrible. I can't believe they're still running those running boards. They collect snow, they're slippery, they're not that strong. I've broken them before, so they're not that strong. And like I said, they just gather snow, they're very slippery. So Pinned came up with a solution where you basically cut the guts out of your stock running boards, put this insert in, and it gets riveted in, and it really mimics the Polaris boards. Very open, nice traction, gives you a little bit more stiffness over the stock ones, but not super stiff like tube boards, so there's a little forgiveness there. I think they're going to be awesome. I will report back on those, but I know they're going to work great. So what else? Oh, just popped into my head when I was talking about the rail. Twice now I've had the front shock arm on the rear suspension that bolts to the rail. I've had that bolt back out, fall out completely. That holds your shock to your rail, front track shock. Twice I've had it happen. There's no warning, it backs out. Once it starts to loosen, it just comes out quickly. There's not much threads there, and it's all aluminum threads, I believe. So it doesn't take long. It just destroys the threads, rips the bolt out, and there you are, no front track shock. So like I said, twice that's happened to me. One time I was able to fix it with a Healy coil. The other time was luckily when I damaged one of the rails, so it was gone anyways. So for this year, I found a guy in Alberta that's kind of come up with a better shock bushing. So it's an actual metal bushing with an O-ring that's got, it's greasable. There's no grease zerk on it, but you grease it when you put it in. It's a longer bolt, so you get way more threads. And the shock bushing itself, what was happening was on the stock bushing, it was actually binding on the bolt, and when that rail was moving, it was actually, that's what was creating the bolt, allowing it to loosen. So with this new shock bushing, it's some sort of steel. Don't quote me on this, but this is what I understand. It's some sort of steel. It's not going to grip the bolt and loosen it out. And believe me, I've tried Loctite. I red Loctited the shit out of that stock bolt. Still came out. So this one, I'm hoping, is the ticket. It's a lot longer bolt, so it's going to grab more threads. Of course, I Loctited it, so fingers crossed on that one. Hopefully that holds together. Other than that, I really love how the Alpha works. It's a super fun sled. Yeah, I can't say much more about that. Again, I can't really pick between the two. Now, one big thing I gotta mention, the Polaris stock, the Axis chassis, the tunnels are so long. I don't know what Polaris was thinking when they did that, and this Polaris mountain sled, but man, those tunnels are long. It was outrageously long. So I found right away riding that compared to my cat the first year, huge difference on how that tunnel reacted in the snow versus the cat. And that was a big difference in what you could do with the cat versus the Polaris. Polaris would get hung up easily, just trenching or going uphill in a wheelie, re-entries, bow ties, anything that you're up on that rear tunnel section or dragging that rear tunnel section, it just hung you up big time. Everyone knows that. Short tunnels are the way to go. If you have an axis, I recommend chopping your tunnel at least 6 inches. It's well worth it. I can't speak about any of the kits. I had mine professionally welded. So I did the cut, I did all the cleaning, prep work, got it professionally welded, leak tested. It's been mint now for 2 seasons, and that was the biggest, best mod I did to that Polaris Axis Khaos, hands down. Obviously the new Matrixes have a way shorter tunnel, and then the Slash, even shorter, tapered, blah blah blah. Skidoo's already on this. Arctic Cats have always been kind of short. Mind you, I did chop my Alpha tunnel a little bit as well, which again just made it a little more rowdy. I don't have any more issues than anybody else for cooling. You pretty much always have to run your scratchers on a mountain sled on the hard pack trail anyway, or else you'll cook your sliders. So I run my scratchers. I don't have any issues any more than anyone else. I have no snow flap on my cat. I have basically no snow flap on my Polaris. It's just for decoration, make it look nice and clean. That's it. So this has been a really long video, so I'm gonna try and wrap it up here, sum it up. Which one do I like more? I don't know. I've said multiple times that the cat is like the crazy ex-girlfriend. When it's good, it's really good. It runs great. It's got lots of power, even 800 compared to that 850 Polaris. It honestly feels as powerful or more powerful. Don't know if that's gearing, clutching, but it works well. And yeah, I love it. Just when I have issues and need parts, it seems like I'm down for a while. And Arctic Cat's just not, they're not keeping up with the Joneses. We'll say they're a little behind compared to other brands. So they gotta get their act together, or else they're gonna lose even more customers. The Polaris, love it. It's been a great sled. It's honestly never given me one problem ever. It's ran flawless. Everyone talks about the fouling plugs. I think I had one day where it acted up a little bit with the plugs, but honestly it was probably my own doing, didn't let it warm up kind of thing. But I didn't even change the plugs. I just went for a good ride, let it scream a little bit, and it ran fine after that. So I don't have plug issues. I'm a little harder on belts on the Polaris, but I think that was my gearing. So I'm hoping that QD2 is going to address the belt heat for clutch belts, and hopefully I'll get a little more life. It wasn't terrible. It's just more than the cat. The cat never ate a belt, ever. Not saying I'm still running the stock belt. I have changed them out, but I don't throw it away. It's still a good belt. It's just it's wore in a bit, but yeah. So I think with the upgrades on the Polaris, the upgrades on the cat, I mean, honestly, to me, you should be basing your decision on what sled you're buying on dealer service, parts availability. Snowmobile season is a very short season. If you got a good Skidoo dealer, if you got a good cat dealer, if you got a good Polaris dealer locally or where you're going to be riding, go with that brand. Like, you can't go wrong. All the new sleds are great. But again, like I said, it comes down to parts availability, service. You're going to break stuff. things are going to break down. It's just how fast you're going to get back up in the snow and how you're going to be treated while you're waiting for your sled to get fixed. That makes all the difference in the world for me. So I'll be buying my next sled based on that. What's it going to be? I don't know. I got to sell both of these before I can buy a new one. So with that, I'm going to close this video out. Thanks for watching. If you're still watching, thank you very much. Like, subscribe. I'm going to hopefully get some more content out for you while I'm in BC. Peace out.